Is this thing working? Are we live? I believe we are live. What's happening, everybody? Just got back from a ride. Took the parallel twin powered Triumph Thunderbird out for a blast. Absolutely adore riding that motorcycle. It's the bike that if my wife and I, if Smoking Hot and I are going to take it for a spin or go for a motorcycle ride, that will be the bike that we're on. But that bike is also a peach to ride single up. It's got a lot of torque, it's powerful, all of that, which got me to thinking. It got me thinking a little bit about the V8. You know, the V8 characteristically, instant torque down low, fades up top in much the same way that my T-Bird runs. Ain't nothing wrong with that, but does the V8 matter anymore to you, dear watcher? That to a lot of people it does. And what I want you to consider is this. Look at the number of people that have bought EcoBoost engines, all of their variants leading up to today. Remember that the EcoBoost has always been the hot rod version of the engine offerings for the F-150 and other vehicles too, but trucks necessarily are what we talk about now. But it's not just in the F-150 that you see the V6 turbo, the Cadillac thing with the V6 that makes all the power, the everything that you see at Texas 2K, either V6 or inline six-cylinder, making gobs of boost and gobs of power to go along with it. The question that I have is, if you're buying a new truck or you're buying a new car, a sports car, something along those lines, does it have to have a V8 anymore? I think a lot of people are looking at the V8 as, well, the position that it's in. It's in a second or even a third tier power option. And that's interesting. And it's interesting from a lot of different perspectives. And I've posted the question before, would you be interested in this new to market inline six Charger that's on the way? There's a lot of folks that are talking, no, I'm not interested in it because it doesn't have a V8. But my question to you is, why does that matter? Well, can I go ahead and answer the question for you, for me anyway? I'll answer my own question in this. I recently bought the F-150 with the Coyote V8. I drove the EcoBoost 3.5 liter, has 100 pound-feet more torque and roughly the same horsepower as the Coyote. And can you believe that I didn't like how that truck drove? Stock for stock, in this case, better fuel in the 5.0 finally, because it was running like crap with, just sludge water fuel. The point that I'm making is that I liked the V8 power delivery better. It felt more natural. It didn't feel as skittish as that 3.5 liter did. And so there's that to consider. Like the actual power delivery, that does make a difference. But it's like you're complaining about the cookie taste just too good, right? If you're complaining about having too much power or more power down low than maybe you're used to, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Well, a lot of people just flat out don't like the idea of boost. They like the idea of an engine doing engine things and relying on boost and the potential issues that you can run into with fuel quality, and you get into all of that. I understand where all of that's coming from, but at the end of the day, we're talking power plants and we're talking our numbers. And the reality is that, are you going to be okay with a V8, but you're looking at the taillights of the V6 powered turbo offering? And I guess that is really more the point. Do you like the sound? Is it how the thing feels to drive? The V8, does it feel like a richer driving experience? There's a lot of things that you can maybe say, but it starts to sound made up in a way. So anyway, mull that over. Let me check in with my early birds. Marco is in. Got the high five. David is in. Ardell, good evening, B. Sorry I've not been joining you. I have been very sick. My man, are you okay? Hope everything's going well. Everybody, 2 thumbs up. Give some good vibes over to Ardell. Man, dude, chicken soup. Hopefully you get feeling better soon, bro. Gary is in. Ryan's up. Got the bald guy with the shades. Yeah, Ardell, man, get feeling better soon. The thing is when we talk about power and we talk about performance, I think a lot of times guys forget that, well, a long time ago, the V8 was going away. And we've talked about this on several occasions, but if you're new to the channel or you're new to maybe new to cars and you see the Hemis and you see the Coyote, those engines really aren't supposed to exist. Let your best buddy Brian over here take you for a ride in the Wayback Machine. So back in the 50 years ago, just about in the early to mid 80s, V8s were basically on their way out. They were this lump of iron that would make power, but they didn't make very good power. The technology just wasn't what we have today or anywhere close back then. As far as making a big engine make good power, but also be street friendly. See, what had happened too is a lot of folks back in the 60s and early 70s, they got a taste of horsepower, but there's an aftertaste that comes with horsepower, my boys. And that is bad streetability, poor fuel economy, and just when I say bad streetability, I mean bad low-end torque. It's one of the reasons why the street Hemi didn't do well at all. It had nothing to do with cost. By today's standards, the Hemi was not that much of a cost upgrade over the 440. The 440 was a much better street engine. Well, that's the lesson that was learned. People did not necessarily want to buy engines that only spun up at the very top end, but got really poor fuel economy, and because of the technology that existed at the time, just did not offer up great street manners. But what we did have is we did have electronic fuel injection, and the electronic fuel injection coupled with overhead camshafts meant that, well, you had engines like the, what was it? The Oldsmobile Quad 4. And if y'all remember the ad campaign, 4 equals 8 or something like that, basically it was a 4-cylinder that made the same horsepower and naturally aspirated as some of the contemporary V8s at the time. And that was where things were going. These 4-cylinders were well on their way with variable cam timing. This is when VTEC was being developed as well. So a lot of really trick tech going into making these little engines work. But, you know, as it happens, guys look around and go, dude, if this works like this fuel injection thing and, you know, all of the things that we're doing for these littler engines, that can work on bigger engines too, guys. And so it was through the development of the 6-cylinder and the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder turbo, 4-cylinder turbo, and all the things that were needed to make those engines work. When you employed those same strategies to a V8, it just meant that you can make a naturally aspirated V8 act like it's got big horsepower, but also act properly on the street, just not be just a lug on the street. So because of that, the V8 got its second wind, but at some point you basically run out of technology. More to the point, guys, you run out of fuel quality. And the one thing that's holding the V8 and other engines back is the fact that we still rely on 87 octane to make power. And for the most part, it doesn't really matter so much if you're just cruising. Your octane, the need for knock resistance just isn't there when you're cruising down the highway. So 87 is perfectly fine. But that being said, if you want to make an advertised number, you need more octane and you need more compression ratio and boost if you can make it happen. So anyway, long story short, the point that I'm making is the V8 lasted as long as it possibly could, with the best iteration of the V8 being the Coyote. And let's face it, you have a twin or a dual, I should say, fuel system, port and direct injection. It's got a honking throttle body, a great intake manifold. It's got the ability to rev to the moon, and a set of cylinder heads that is absolutely insane. But nothing from any of the other manufacturers even comes close as far as making the same technology that you would have employed for a small engine work on a larger displacement engine. So with all of that being said, you're still going to be faced with the prospect of dealing with an inline six from Dodge for power, of course, mated with some turbos, and across the board with other manufacturers, with only a couple of manufacturers, Chevrolet and Ford, offering up V8s for their half-ton trucks and, of course, for their performance vehicles, the Corvette and the Mustang. And it's easy to forget about the Corvette just because of the stratospheric pricing that we're looking at. So let me check in with you guys and we'll get back to the chat. Thank you. Yeah, get feeling better, bud. Rome is in. Lime's in. How's it going, everybody? Good evening, Professor. Good evening, Lime. Ryan is in. I'm drilling over this all-wheel drive HOI6 Charger. Wish I was in the name, but oh well. Yep, same here, guys. Look, okay, so Skids is in. Got the cadence. I like it. So here's the thing, guys. Power plant's a power plant to me. I love the V8. I love the power delivery that the Coyote delivers for me. I love the sound thing. I love the fact that it is still, at the end of the day, a V8. I like all of that. But there's some stuff about it that kind of makes me a little skittish. Belt-driven oil pump, although it's a Kevlar belt that will probably outlast the engine itself. You would think that I should have a problem with that. For some reason, I just don't have an issue with that. But the other thing is, there's just there is a point where the V8 has to be so complex to offer up what is acceptable as far as horsepower and torque numbers, and also offer up the same in terms of fuel economy. And the problem is that the Coyote, as great as it is, as phenomenal as that engine is, it is obnoxiously complex, at least not mechanically. Mechanically, it's really not. In fact, overhead camshafts, it sounds spooky and all this other stuff. If you know what you're looking at and you know what you're doing, technically, it's a little easier. It's more of a pain in the ass from a logistics point of view of getting to everything, but working on the thing. But the reality is the engine is sitting on an engine stand, and that's how you're looking at it. It ain't much to it. In fact, it makes life a whole lot easier in some cases, or in some respects, I should say. So, and it was actually kind of the de facto V8 engine architecture going back well over 100 years. So what's old is new again. But I guess really the point that I'm making is, at some point, the V8 becomes so obnoxiously complex that, and you try to find efficiencies in every nook and cranny that you can, that there's now no longer a benefit to going with a V8. Because the idea behind V8 is that it is more simple. It is, less to go wrong. You've got less complexity. You're not worried about boost. Fuel quality comes, all of that. But when you have an engine like the Coyote with 12-to-1 compression in a pickup truck, seriously, continuously variable camshaft, all of that takes, some complex gadgets and gizmos. Again, a belt-driven oil pump, which is actually saturated belt-driven oil pump. People get skittish about that kind of stuff. You've got, at least it's two chains, if I remember correctly, that are timing everything out. Anyway, you get a lot of weird stuff that can potentially go weird. And again, it's all the same stuff in an engine, that the only thing that separates it from an engine like the the Hurricane is the fact that it doesn't have two turbochargers hanging off of it. Aside from that, It's identical to all of V6s that are out there in terms of complexity, but that's what you have got to do to get a V8 to work in this environment. I'll give you a perfect example. Chevrolet with the 5.3 and the 6.2 liter. The funny thing is that engine family, the LT engine family, is so eerily detuned and is so neutered to get it to pass emissions. A 2-valve engine does not do all that hot in standardized testing, especially with emissions. And to make any real power, a 2-valve has got to have a set of heads that flows like gangbusters, which the LTs do. But that comes at the cost of very slow port velocity. So you got to come up with some clever ways to get port velocity through the intake manifold into the combustion chamber so that you've got a lot of air at low RPM. There's a lot of trickery, a lot of really crazy stuff that comes into play when you do that. And that's one of the reasons why the Hemi had to go. The Hemi is great at building power down low through the mid-range at mid-throttle areas. Again, you talk about getting specific, but the Hemi does not like to be throttled, and no engine does with a lot of head flow. It's another reason why it's practically mandatory to have these variable camshafts that at least give you some way to build that velocity down low to where it makes power. Because without it, that thing just is going to be a dog. And again, we're right back where we started. And let's not forget, remember that Gen 2 Hemi that I was just talking about? The heads that are on your 5.7 liter Gen 3 Charger, Challenger, whatever, pickup truck, those heads flow more than the Gen 2 426 Hemi. Let that marinate a little bit for just a second and figure that they're able to make power with these engines now in ways that it was impossible to make back in the day. The only way they could do it back then was with displacement. Believe me, they did not want the frictional losses to have to deal with the extra issues that you're going to have with potential drivability with the cams that you would need to put into those engines because they're now big displacement to make them make any power. But you're, again, relying on displacement to make the thing move under its own power at very low RPM. So, but let me check in with you guys real. Oh, I almost messed this whole thing up. Timeout. I am making a mess of this. Here we go. Okay. Back in the mix. See, we checked in with Skids. Eric is in. What's up, Eric? Hope things are going good, my man. Eric's Skids checking in with Eric. Steven's saying there's nothing in the world like the sound of a V8. It cannot be replaced. It may be worth the money just for the soundtrack. I agree. Yeah, Skids Fords is still going to be making V8s for a while, a long while. Eric's saying, Stephen Brown, good evening. Eric's liking the V8s. I understand he's a V8 man. I like it. Mike's liking the 4.6 valve Romeo motors. Yeah, those were really good engines. You know, the funny thing is that was, I don't know, that's debatable if they were better. They were simpler. I can tell you that. And we used to make a lot of power with those things. Because, yeah, Ford's been doing the 4-cam setup for a long time. Surely they have it down pat by now. Oh, they do, and then some. David saying he'd take the V8 over the inline 6 any day, no matter how fast it might be, just for the sound and the feel of the V8 alone. Guys, that's why I bought my truck. And I got to say, there are things that Ram does better than the F-150, but making power ain't one of them. And I'm here to tell you guys that I hate to say this, but I don't know if Stormy ended up being a dud. I did start having some issues with that truck, and I did not want to try to play I didn't want to play the warranty deal with that. And the other alternative was to build a 392 for it. And I was looking at that prospect thinking, my God, this thing is going to get real expensive, real fast, and I'm going to be sinking money into something that I'm already not looking good as far as resale value on. So away she went. And the F-150 took its place. The F-150 that I bought runs way different than the 2021 that I drove when I was shopping for trucks. And I can tell you this, if Ford, and they will, because it's the latest, it's the Gen 4 Hemi. If Ford stays the course with the power production of the Coyote the way that it sits now, by the way, my truck was stock everything. It tries to shift at 65 or 6,700 RPM. Not that it's really making power out there, but I've got to fix my transmission tune, because whoever the calibration engineer is for Ford, I don't know, they got a little bit tipsy one night and put the Mustang shift strategy in these things. Anyway, but I've got to have the latest HP tuners hardware to even read the file itself. So get a load of that. Anyway, where I was going with all of this is this. Ford makes a V8 that produces power like an inline six with a turbo. Well, at least it produces power in much the same way as the standard output is, I don't know, it's threatening us with, I guess, with the Ram. That is a very good thing. And so Ford's going to be making V8s for a long time. I'm a little bit still, I feel like a lot of us are like pound puppies on this thing. All of us are just going, where's the V8? When is the V8 going to take me home? It's not coming from Dodge. And we were told there was a V8. Rephrase that. It was rumored that there was a 5.5-ish liter, 5.2, 5.5, whatever, basically Mopar Coyote, what was in development. That never, and I would have loved for that to have been the case, but it obviously wasn't the case. And so, but can you blame them? See, and I guess here's the other thing. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, that Ram did release a 5.5 liter dual overhead cam Coyote equivalent. Or let's say it's 5.3 liter, 5.2 liter. It's 318 cubic inches. And it's a traditional Dodge displacement. It's got all of the same technology that the Coyote has, and it's 415 horsepower and 425 foot-pounds of torque. So just a little bit more than the Coyote, but not by leaps and bounds, but it's not leaps and bounds a bigger engine. And it's coupled with the 8-speed HP75. Where would you be with that? I mean, let's say it's even better than that. Let's say it's 420 and 450 torque. It would still be less torque than the standard output Hurricane 6, 420 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. Would it matter? Well, in that case, I mean, you might just go ahead and pay the money for a V8 just because of the soundtrack, right? I would have. I did. And at great expense, I might add. That Ford was not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, and I got my ass kicked on trade-in on that Ram, and I was willing to do it and take the hit because I wanted the soundtrack, I wanted the power, I wanted the overall quality. But more to the point, I know that in 3 or 5 years, if I'm going to be trading that Ford in, I can buy another one with a V8. So I'm kind of liking this V8 thing. And I get it. A lot of people are going to say, yeah, but you get your ass kicked by one of these other trucks. Who cares? Sorry, but I'm not racing anybody in this truck. It's an entertaining truck to drive. And at some point, guys, more just doesn't make it better. It will be lost on me. And this comes up in conversations with motorcycle stuff too, a lot, where, you know, it'll be in a conversation. Well, what if this bike had another 20 horsepower? then it would have more, but I wouldn't notice it because I would have already gotten used to the more that it's got. More is not always the better thing. Matter, let me, and I'll just kind of sidebar this into, I get a lot of questions, man. I got sliced up, not really sliced. I got this little cut on the back. You ever get like a little cut and it, like something gets in it and just itches like a motherfucker? That's what this thing is doing. It's driving me nuts. Anyway, I get a lot of questions about camshafts. Lots of questions about camshafts, and rightfully so. I've put a lot of camshafts together for guys. But it's interesting where guys will ask, well, what's the best? How do I get more power out of my whatever contraption that it is? And I get to thinking, the more I do get to thinking, and the more I get to, driving some of the cars with cams, even the ones that I put together, it's like, man, this makes more power, but it's not more. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be like to get the feel of more power. The way I've kind of come to grips with this is it's done by percentage. So I can't tell you that making 20 more horsepower you're going to feel 20 horsepower, because if you're in a 6-cylinder that makes 180 horsepower, then 20 more horsepower is a big percentage of your existing power. You're going to notice that quite a bit, right? But if you're in a Hellcat variant that's already making 700 horsepower, 20 horsepower, that thing's going to run, it's going to vary 20 horsepower just as it heat cycles. So you'd never notice 20 horsepower there, but it'd be a big thing that you would notice down low. 20, 40, 50 horsepower. It's like you've got to be in like that 20%. You need to make 20% more to notice the power. And to know where your money's been spent. You go, oh, yeah, I can feel 10%. Okay, fine, if you say so. But the reality is that you need that 20% to really know and feel where the money's been spent. And that's where the inline 6 turbo, that's where you will find that. You'll find the bigger chunk of torque in areas, right? Just across the board. You'll find a bigger hit somewhere over a traditional 2-valve V8. The Coyote, on the other hand, is a whole different ball game. That thing it has a wallop of torque at between 3 and 4,500 RPM, and it even sounds different. It sounds amazing when you're in that part of the power band, especially if you're on E85, which brings me to another point that I want to get to. Let me talk to you guys real quick. We're going to talk about E85 here in just a second on these things. Skids, yeah, the 4.6 is indestructible. So let me tell you something fun about the 4.6. When I lived in San Francisco, we had the Gypsy cabs, and these guys were the guys that, man, you'd call them up like, Bryce, come outside of, anyway, they're like, all right, well, we'll come get you. So anyway, you call up your Gypsy cab. These are the guys that worked after hours when their shift would end at the airport. And they would give you their car, say, look, anytime you need a ride, just give me a holler. I'll come fetch you. We do this stuff after hours. And for point number one, those cars are never turned off unless they're being serviced. Those cars are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In San Francisco, SFO, to be a licensed cab or to be okay to pick up customers, your car has to have less than 350,000 miles on it. The last town car that I rode in had 580,000 miles on it, and that thing still looked great. It still looked great. But again, I asked the guy, how do you keep this thing running? He goes, dude, it's been alternators and water pumps. That's it. He goes, every 150,000 miles, it gets a new alternator and it gets a new water pump. They don't wait for it to go bad. They just swap them out. And that car is probably still running to this day with about 100 and something thousand miles on it. Might have had to go in for a full rebuild with timing chains at this point, but the 4.6 is a bomb-proof engine. It's awesome in terms of durability. Um, oh, Mike's, yeah, the oil pump belt on the new Coyote 2.7 and 1 liter major weak point. Ford made fuel economy more important than reliability. And that's the thing. There's a lot of guys running around with high mileage on those things that are doing well. And then there's some that fail. The funny thing is that it makes, anytime you have one of those belts that is saturated in any kind of oil, you've got to be on top of your maintenance, man. And that's a big deal for a lot of folks, is, that oil pump belt. But the thing is I know in the 1 liter, it's really bad. The 1 liter, it's a complete disaster flick. And I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know. That's a long ass belt though, isn't it? Something has to do with that too. It's kind of a weird deal. But yeah, they were finding like chunks of, belt in the oil pan. Here's the other funny thing though. It's a lot like, I mean, in this case, your engine dies, which is bad, but it's a lot like the cams letting go in Hemis and in the DOD GM V8s. I mean, every engine's going to have some kind of a fatal flaw. And that, now at least you know where to look. Eric saying, Mike, good evening. I do like that Ford Coyote V8 engine too, and I'm a GM guy. I just love V8 engines for sure. Rum's asking, do you have any opinion on points versus electric distributors? They both have their place. If you can get dual points, that's not bad. Points are pretty easy to work around and to work with. I prefer the electronic because it uses a Hall effect sensor. Points are obviously going to be a lot easier to mess with, but then you have to get into, in some cases, you've got voltage regulators, and there's a lot of weird stuff that can come into play with point stuff. But I prefer electronic just because the Hall effect sensor is extremely reliable. Mike said, I kind of like the inline sixes. Pretty much every manufacturer made reliable one. Oh yeah. Skid saying, looks are subjective. I get it, but I really find the F-150 regular cab short bed with a 5.3 or 4.2 drop on 22s very sexy. A lot of folks do, especially compared to Silverado's or Ram. In my opinion, I have a Ram currently. I've got a Ram too, guys. I still have Buffy. In fact, Buffy is coming up on 200,000 miles. He's at 192-ish, 193 coming up on that. So listen, I'm one to talk, right? I mean, reliability. And on that truck, the only thing that I've had to replace has been the water pump, obviously the belt. What else did I do? Along the way, I did the thermostat. What else? I feel like I'm forgetting. Oh, well, the wheel hub that we just recently did. And brakes, lots of brakes. But that's it. I mean, the truck has been fairly reliable. I mean, you can't really knock, any issues with it. I can tell you that globally for the fleet, transmissions have been the bigger problem than anything else. We've had a couple of engines have to go in for new camshafts. And keep in mind, this is a 26 truck fleet. And so transmissions have been the number one offender. And all of them have had the Hemi tick, by the way. So, I mean, there's not one that hasn't, that has a Hemi at this stage. My only concern with Buffy at this stage of her life is, and keep in mind, I am super strict with oil changes with that truck, more so than anybody else, I think, or at least every bit as, top of the list in terms of being diligent with maintenance. But I can tell you, I feel I've got one lifter that just does not like to pump up, but that's a Hemi thing. You fire the thing up and it's tick, 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 tick for a while, and then that goes away. It's a Hemi thing, so just there is that. But anyway, they are durable when they are maintained. I think that holds true. And again, there's a lot of Gen 4 Coyotes that are out there with a bunch of miles on them. So I would probably say, though, at some point, around that 200,000 mile mark, you'd probably want to get all of your belts replaced. I mean, it'd probably be a $5,000 service. It's good. I think another question for diehard Mopar guys, besides the Coyote Hemi, would they want a lighter car? Good point. With all the hype on compact truck market, I'm curious if Stellantis will attempt to have a competitor for the Ford Maverick. They should have already released the Dakota. Maybe like an old Ram 50, the 5.0, which is a fun little truck, Plymouth Arrow. That would be cool. They need to do something. But the thing, it's a funny thing, though. I mean, the new mid-size trucks are freaking big trucks. They're every bit as big as a boxy Chevy back in the day. BBC, I know the professor recommends Cook's headers for the Hemi. Guy at my local parts said American Racing is 90% the quality for a better price. Anyone had any experience with American Racing headers? Yes, I have. They fit like shit. They're good if you've got a W211 Mercedes, but they don't do really well. We had issues with fitment with American Racing headers on a lot of different products. So Cook's, we had the best performance, but more importantly, the best fit and finish with the Cook's. American Racing would be a little bit off. Flanges wouldn't look good, but they are less expensive. But I would say you get, instead of 90% of the quality, I would argue that it's about 70% of the quality. And, if it's 70% of the price, then, you're getting what you're paying for. Eric saying, if Ford brings back a four-door rear-drive platform sedan with 10-speed automatic transmission and a Coyote V8, brings back the Galaxy name, Dodge will be in serious trouble. Man, I tell you what, there's a lot of folks that would agree with you. It wasn't just the Galaxy. There were a lot of people talking about the Chevelle too, that where Chevrolet really missed the boat is when they brought the SS into the conversation. It wasn't really marketed the right way. And because of the way that it wasn't marketed, and it was Americanized from the Holden. If Chevrolet would have brought over the Monero the way that it was as the SS was based off, that thing would have been amazing in this market. LS3, you could get it with a 6-speed. The badass car all the way around. The Cop variant also was really good that they never really did anything with. But the problem with a car like that is that it sounds good to an enthusiast, but to the everyday buyer, they look at that and go, oh, okay, that sounds good, but I can get an F-150 with 4 big doors, a bed, and the seats all go up and it runs really good. And, it's more utilitarian. For the enthusiast that would say, man, this would be the American equivalent to a 550 BMW or an E-Class Mercedes. You got to remember that in the States, SUVs and trucks, man, that's what sells. And that's another thing. Just be not want to be that guy, but just be glad that you have access to a car like the Charger, because I think that if some folks in some chairs had it their way, there wouldn't be a sedan. It would be all crossovers and trucks and SUVs of some type. Oh, BB's saying headers would be the most expensive single part I throw at the thing. So definitely want to buy once, cry once. That's where I'm at, guys. I have made a lot of people a lot of money with me trying to get away with not spending money in one area, only to find that I really should have spent a little bit more. The way that my luck typically goes with this stuff, and this is what I've learned now, and I don't try to save money per se anymore. I've learned that every time I try to save money, it ends up burning me in the end. And so, if it means I've got to pay 20% more, but I get something that is tried, true, fits, and everything, it's a known quantity that is going to be a badass, and I'm not going to try to get away with something. Pay the extra money to get the extra quality. You'd be surprised too, because when you pay the extra money and you get the better quality, you also, the thing that you can't put on paper is the service that you typically will get. And because it just kind of comes with it. I've found that anytime that I have saved money, I have been ripped off. Anytime that I have spent the extra money, I have found much more value in the money that had been spent. It's so hard for me inside to not try to save the money. But in the way where I'm at now is I will save. If I need to save for another 6 months to get whatever it is that I need to get bought, I will save for the extra 6 months to get the one that is going to be the right one. Because it's like I can't afford. You'd be surprised how expensive going cheap is. It can be the reason why you end up getting out of cars. A lot of guys will try to go cheap on hardware or try to take shortcuts with tuning and things like that, only to find that you end up having crap fitment. You get exhaust leaks or something along those lines, or it shows up and you've got to work on it to get it to fit right. That's the piss me off of, oh my gosh. In fact, at the shop, we would not let people bring in, I put a hard stop on allowing the customer to buy their own parts. Like, nope, it's going through us. Because if the part comes in and it doesn't fit right, or there's an issue or whatever, that means that the lift has been held up. I've paid somebody probably 2.5 to 3 hours already on a ticket to get to the point where they're finding out that something is not going to work. Or you open up the box and it just looks like it's been in a bar fight, right? It's all, no, you don't want that, right? So we quit doing that, and it saved pissed off a lot of folks. Well, I've got these headers already. Send them back, return them. We're not going to install them for you. And it was, well, I just can't believe, I got a friend of mine that'll do. Why are you calling me? If homeboy will do it for a third of the cost and isn't going to complain about it, then go with your homeboy, because it ain't going to be us. It's a professional shop run by professional mechanics and design engineers. We're not going to sit around and listen to how you've saved money only to create a big issue for us. Because what you also have to remember is that time on the rack, that when a car is on the rack, that rack has got to earn a minimum of $400 to $600 per day for it to exist. And so that's, again, why when I give you guys advice, say, look, buy this particular part, buy this thing, buy whatever. I'm not telling you that because I'm getting cheddar off of somebody. I'd love to. I mean, listen, I'm up for anybody that wants to sponsor me at this point. Need all them dineros I can get. But if I'm giving you guys a heartfelt recommendation, is because I know the quality. I know the way it's going to fit. I know that it's a known, when it shows up, it's not going to look like it got its ass kicked. Because you got to remember, a lot of times you're paying for the packaging too. Well, you're always paying for the packaging, but when stuff shows up and it's beat the hell out of, then, okay, now you've got downtime and you've got all these other, oh my gosh, it's just a complete disaster flick. So you get the idea, you know where I'm coming from. If I recommend something, it's because I've got experience with it. And it's not just because it performs well, but it's because of every other thing that comes with it. It's just like anything else. It's easy to get the part right. It's kind of gnat flying around here. It might be easy to get the part right, but if it shows up and it's a piece of crap, well, it made 5 more horsepower. Yeah, after I got through redesigning the thing to fit, yeah, it worked out great. So yeah, no, forget it. Not having Captain. Oh, Skids. Hey, how's the old T-Bird? I literally just got back from a ride on it like I'm cleaning the helmet that I was wearing. Right, it's running great. Let's see, it took it out for about an hour, and man, that thing just soaks up miles. I wouldn't want to use it for touring or anything like that, but you know, for an hour at a time, maybe an hour and a half at a time, cruising around at like between 85 and 105, it absolutely rips. And the thing that's funny about that bike is that it accelerates well from a stop, but it accelerates really well when you're rolling down the highway. So it's running really good. And you know, I can't say anything bad about it. It's doing great. I will be on the Cowie for most of the day tomorrow. Looking forward to that. The Z900 RS Cafe. Really do enjoy that bike a lot too. Skids, yep, good day for it. Was 67 up in DFW. Didn't get out today, unfortunately. I was able to get out for a little bit. I took Foxy out and was going to do some filming with Foxy. It was going to be like a riding with Brian type of thing. But I ended up I was like, screw that. I need to just drive the car. That thing needs an alignment. The alignment that's on it would work really well for autocross, but yeah, for cruising down the highway at, you know, normal highway speeds, 85, 95 miles an hour, it's a little lively, if that's the right term. So I need to get that thing to an alignment shop. I think it's towed in just a little bit, so I need to get that rectified. Skids, do I stick the pinky out when you say cafe? Cafe, of course. You can't say cafe without sticking your pinky out. God, that would just be weird. But no, I was able to spend a little bit of time with Foxy. That was a lot of fun. But that thing needs an alignment bad. But no, the T-Bird, like I say, the T-Bird is running well. Got to find out where the Daytona is leaking from. We've got yet another oil leak on the Daytona. This time, I believe it is on the left side of the bike. Don't know where it's leaking from. Can't find it, but we will figure it out. So, but yeah, guys. So I wanted to touch base with y'all this evening. I find it interesting when we're talking about the V8, and a lot of guys are really wanting a V8. What are the reasons for the V8? Is it the noise? Is it the way that it puts power down? And even that is an interesting thing, because of the V8s that are on the market right now, the most traditional feeling V8s are the Gen 3 Hemi and the offerings from Chevrolet with the 5.3 and the 6.2. The Coyote does not put power down like a traditional V8. It kind of bridges the gap, and that would make sense, right? Because it bridges the gap because, well, it's got all of the doodads and gadgets that you would put in a small engine in a V8 to make it make power. So again, if you want a V8 that makes the power, you go with a Coyote or something like that. But if you want a more traditional feeling V8, obviously the Gen 3 Hemi is really tough to beat. But if you want one that's new, I suggest you get to your local Ram dealership post haste, my friend, because at the end of this year, it's over with. And all the guys that are going to be early adopters of that Hurricane 6 with their trucks, I guess best of luck to you. They're going to be fast. They're going to run good. They're going to probably get decent enough fuel economy, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to be a little bit, well, let's just say that sticker shock is going to become a real thing. And it's my understanding that, well, the high output version is only going to be reserved for significantly well-appointed trucks. But I don't know, if you want a V8, well, and you don't want to mess with e-torque, it's going to be Chevy or Ford. So get ready to shell out your money for one of those. It's saying, truly, if you want it, the V8, go get it. If you're going to use Dodge, however, I would suggest the 19 to 22s for the newer ones. I hear the 23s are having record number of issues, not even engine related. Well, let me bring you into the fold as far as all the electrical gremlins and goblins that I was just starting to get to have to deal with mine. I can tell you this, guys, and this is the other thing. I should, and there's part of me that kind of wishes I would have kept that truck, but I did not want to have to deal with I had so many Dodge for me. Oh God, this is so hard for me to say. Because this could really happen to any manufacturer, and it could just be my dumb luck. But Dodge for me, Ram, Stellantis, the brand, started losing me with all the electrical issues that I had with the Hellcat. I haven't had a vehicle have electrical issues like the Dodge products that I've had since my 93 Corvette, which was like nothing but electrical problems. But that was all transitional technology. This is the later stuff is supposed to all be up to snuff, right? And hell, I should have let it go of the car, but I still have one of the wheel speed sensors that I bought as an extra for the Hellcat, if you can believe that. So nothing but electrical problems for me with the Dodge products, except for the freaking Buffy that's a 2017. But Buffy doesn't have any of the Uconnect, it doesn't have anything. It's just a basic tradesman. That truck's great. It's all the extras that have come with it. That truck still has all of its original speed sensors. It has all of its original, all of that stuff. Even still has the original spark plugs, the original coils, all of that. The truck is 100% the way that it came from the factory, and it's about to clip 200,000 ass miles. So, it's tough. It's tough to get past electrical gremlins, though, for me. It's almost easier for me to accept a mechanical problem than it is an electrical problem, because the electrical parts that I have had experience with going bad, it's like all the ones that you need for the rest of the stuff to work. Wheel speed sensors, you got to have them for your modes, right? I had a fuel pump driver go bad with the Hellcat. What the hell does even that do? Like, why is there an extra driver when the ECU should be controlling all of this? I don't get any of that. A fuel pump going bad. How does a fuel pump go bad in a car that doesn't have more than 16,000 miles on it? A fuel pump goes bad? Holy crikey. You got to be kidding me with that. And the list goes on and on. The fuel pressure sensor, which is part of the fuel rail for that car, which was not part of the warranty when it was still under warranty. Like, how do you justify? And it just goes on and on and on. I mean, even if I made money on that car, the balance sheet would reflect that I really didn't, because of all of the sensors and all the crap. Hubs going bad. How does a wheel hub go bad on a car with less than 20,000 miles? Somebody explain that to me. When I've got a truck that almost made it to 200,000 miles before I had to mess with a wheel hub. Having to use bespoke Mopar part numbered sensors because aftermarket stuff doesn't work. You see what I mean? It's like, burn me once, shame on you. Burn me twice, shame on me. I can't do it again, man. I've had way too many issues with build quality, way too many electrical problems. Okay, so we talked about the Hellcat's electrical problems. My Ram, guys, okay, aside from the sketchiness of the lifter tick that it was already developing, but the weird thing about that truck was the Uconnect system would just randomly change. Like, the skins would change and it wouldn't have my contacts in it anymore. And every time you started it, it was a different welcome screen. It was just weird, man. I was like, are they watching? Where's the camera in this thing? But when the when the sun visor fell out and smacked smoking hot wife in the face, that's when that truck had to go. Biggs in. Skid saying started opening a can of worms. Not really. I mean, it is what it is. Noab is in, tuning in late. It's all good. Got about 5 minutes left on this one, and then I have got to get back to it. He was saying, I get that people are turned off by the old interiors, but I kind of like that. The 2008, 2010 era Mopars didn't have a bunch of luxury electronics that didn't work properly. Hey, man, say what you will about the older interiors. A lot of people say, it looks like a taxi cab in here. I mean, you're telling me good news like it's bad news. I used to really like the older, like the SRT8s. It's a little bit more simple of a layout. Listen, you don't have problems with Uconnect systems failing in cars that don't have Uconnect. Okay, I'll just put it to you like that. That whole system just, I don't know. And the thing that sucks is that it's a really good interface. Like, I liked the layouts. I liked that it was a lot more like car guy friendly. It's like somebody that was into cars put together the system for the Uconnect. It's just the execution sucks. It's just too glitchy. My big complaint about the Ford is that you don't have the information that the Dodge gives you. Now, that can be both good and bad, because I don't know what to do with the information if you've got it, but at least, I mean, you got a voltmeter with the Dodge, right? Anyway, let's see, Eric. His friends having major problems with his last call 23 Charger Daytona with electrical problems. Damn. Hemi V8 runs great, just electrical problems. Yeah, I can't deal with that, man. That is enough. I mean, I will lose my mind. Well, I'm saying same thing happened on my Jeep Gladiator. The passenger side visor hit my wife in the head. Time for that thing to go. It's a 21 and the front end went south on it. Damn, what a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah. BB saying mine's old enough to have a key instead of a push start. Man, I tell you what, that's how Buffy is. Buffy doesn't have a push button. Buffy's a key. Not that anybody's going to be rushing out to thieve off with Buffy, but I mean, I don't mind it having a key. What I like about the key, let me tell you something I don't like about push button start rig. I have to remember to keep my keys somewhere where I won't forget them in the vehicle when I leave the vehicle with the keys still in the car, because I'll like toss them in the console or I've got them somewhere. I almost feel like I need to have a necklace that I put keys on, like Latchkey Kid style, because man, I will leave those keys. I'll walk out. I'm like, oh, damn, my keys are still in there. So something to be said for having the old fashioned key too. Tony's asking, how fast do you think the new 6-pack will go in the quarter mile? So let's start with the standard first. That the 420 and 470 torque car is going to be like a 1230. It's going to be an easy 1230, 12-teen car. You know, that's just how that's going to work. You may see it dip into the 11s in cooler air, or you may see it dip into the 11s on a tire, but it won't be a problem getting that thing to run at some point. I'm betting on it being light, deep into the 12s. The HO car is going to be a 10-second car if you put drag radials all the way around it and you absolutely launch the piss out of it. That is a 10-second car. I can tell you just from driving the Grand Wagoneer, if it's not a 10-second car, it'll be like an 11:30 car. There's no on the street, mind you. So that's faster than any Hellcat variant that's not a Trackhawk or a Durango, and it might even be quicker than those on the actual street itself. So I would say that if you are taking it to the drag strip, let's say you have a draggy and you get a clean launch out of it, I'm going to say 1070, 1077, 1078, somewhere in that range. Again, it's going to depend on the temperature, and it's going to depend on the weight of that thing. BB's asking, isn't that how RT Life got his Jeep stolen, forgot the key fob in the cup holder. I think it could well be. I've got all of mine are like all on one thing, but yeah, it's easy to do. It's easy to forget. And it's weird too. It's like out of sight, out of mind. I used to, and I need to get Faraday pouches. I need to go ahead and just re-up all my Faradays. Yeah, I'm a big fan of having, like, if I've got a keyless or a fob, the Faraday pouch helps me because it just makes it so bulky that I can't help but remember to grab it. But with that, guys, I've got to wrap it up. I want to thank all y'all for hanging out. Get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know, guys. And with that, that's a wrap. Y'all have a great one. Adios.